All right. So what I'm doing is I'm recording this Tegrity lecture, which is the last one for Chapter 5. I'm doing this in my office because yesterday in class, apparently there was some problem with Tegrity, and it recorded the video. It didn't record the audio portion, and then halfway through it just stopped. And so I don't know. It's kind of unusual because traditionally I've had really good luck with Tegrity and haven't really had any problems. So I apologize this semester for some of the issues that we've been having. What I wanted to do is um, go to, let's see, wanted to make you aware that your third quiz is now open. So if you go to the Canvas homepage, you can find your third quiz. Okay, so it's here. It's going to be open through Saturday, March 11th at 11:59 p.m. and it contains 10 multiple choice questions, and it covers all of Chapter 5, which is the time value of money chapter. And so we'll have that. Now, let me kind of bring you up to date on what we're going to try to do with the time we have left for this test anyway. Test number 2 covers 2 chapters, Chapter 5 and Chapter 8. We're finishing Chapter 5 today. We'll start Chapter 8 on Thursday, and that'll give us Thursday, next Tuesday, and next Thursday to finish Chapter 8, and then you'll have spring break. Well, I don't really like that spring break is kind of falling in between here, but that's kind of what we're working with. So what I'm going to do is we can finish Chapter 8 before spring break. You have your break, and then when you come back to Tuesday after spring break, we will review for test number 2, and then we will have test number 2 the Thursday after spring break. So at least as of, I think that's right. Yes. So as of now, that's kind of the plans, but of course plans can change. And for the online class, that means that your test will probably open up that Thursday after spring break, and will probably remain open through the weekend. And again, it just covers 2 chapters, Chapter 5 and Chapter 8. All right. A couple of other items. One is for extra point opportunities. As I said, if you're off campus, anything that if you do some training at work, if you go to some type of meeting, if you I had one person email me and said, I'm going through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Does that count? I mean, yes, those count. So if you're off campus, if you're emailing me what you've done for extra credit, if you have 2 opportunities, 2 5-point opportunities. And so if it's easier just if you send me one email with both of your extra credit items on there, so I can just put them on it at one time. Also, if you're an on-campus student and you can't attend, for example, the career fair, which is next week, next Tuesday from 2 to 5, or the presidential lectures is Thursday night, tomorrow night. Any of those would count, or any other items that you attend, club meetings, organization meetings, speaking events, any of that, that counts. So just let me know about that. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to bring up Chapter 5, and let me actually, I hope okay, so here is Chapter 5, which is the last part of time value money. Now, where we left off, we had just, we were talking about loans, amortized loans, and we had just went through purchasing a car. So we were financing a car. We went through that process, and let's see, I finished here. So we started out with just a 1 payment per year loan payment. And then we went to a monthly loan payment. So we went to this example of purchasing a car. And the last part that I wanted to talk about today is purchasing a house, financing a house. And what it is discussing here is simply a home loan is called a mortgage loan. And the most popular mortgage loans are going to be 30-year fixed rate loans and 15-year fixed rate loans. Now, there are other types. You can get a mortgage loan you can get a 5-year mortgage loan, a 10-year mortgage loan, a 25-year, 30-year. Even in some parts of the country, you can get a 40-year mortgage loan. And that's typically in places like California, where real estate prices are so expensive that most people can't afford a 30-year payment, so they have to finance their house for some houses for 40 years. Let me just give you some advice. Please never ever finance a house for 40 years. Okay. So we're going to talk about just the two types, 30-year and 15-year fixed. Now, there are variable rate mortgages. Those are called ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. There are interest-only mortgages where you're just paying the interest. You never pay down on the principal. And again, those are mortgages that I would suggest most people stay away from. Typically fixed rate, especially when rates are as low as they've been over the last several years, is typically going to be better for most homeowners. Now, in this example, you're going to buy a $200,000 house. You're going to have to pay a 20% down payment, which is pretty standard. If you have a smaller down payment than 20%, typically you're going to have to pay something called private mortgage insurance, or PMI. And so that means 20% of 200,000 is $40,000. So you're going to borrow 200 minus 40, which is $160,000. The interest rate is going to be 5% per year. And in the first example, we're going to finance the house for 30 years, or that's 30 times 12, 360 monthly payments. And then we're going to calculate it again, financing the house for 15 years, or 15 times 12, which is 180 monthly payments. So as we take a look at this, let me switch over to okay, so hopefully this is going to show up. So this is for the 30-year. And this is going to be for the 15 year. All right, so in this case, the present value, which is the amount that you borrow, is $160,000. N is going to be 30 years times 12, which is 360 monthly payments. And the I/Y is 5%. And we want to know the payment amount. For the 15-year mortgage, everything else is going to be the same. The only difference is your N is going to be 15 years times 12, which is 180 monthly payments. Everything else is the same. And so here is our payment. Okay, now I'm going to, hopefully this is going to stay up on the screen. I had trouble yesterday with it standing on the screen, or actually remaining on the screen when I come back to it. But I'm going to switch over to the financial calculator really quickly. And one thing, actually, let me bring that back up if it's still there. Maybe. Okay, it is. Good. I want to remind you that for both of these calculations, these are monthly payments. So you need to change your payments per year to 12. And I will do that when I bring up my financial calculator. All right, so here we are. Here's our financial calculator. I'm going to check my payments per year by clicking on the second key and then the I/Y key. It's currently set on 1, so I want to change it to 12. So to do that, I'm just going to put in 12, press the Enter key to lock it in. I'm then going to press my clear button in the bottom left-hand corner a couple of times so I'm showing zeros. And now I want to go through and clear out any old input. So I'm going to press the second, clear time value of money, second, clear work. All right, so now I'm ready for my input. So it said we were going to borrow $160,000. Just as with the car payment example, the 160 is the present value. It's how much you are borrowing from the lender. N was 360. So 360, press the N key. And then 5 is the interest per year. And we want to press now our compute key. We've entered 3 variables. We're solving for the 4th. So compute the payment. And this tells us the payment for the 30-year mortgage is $858.91. So let me bring this back up and let me write that out before I forget it. So the payment here, okay, is going to be $858.91. And that's per month. And that is what's called P&I, principal and interest. That does not include things such as if you have an escrow account. If you have an escrow account, oftentimes your lender will require that, or sometimes they would suggest that you do it. And actually, it's a pretty good deal for most people. What an escrow account is simply they're going to take your annual homeowner's insurance amount. They're going to divide it by 12, add that part to your house payment, and they're going to take your annual property tax amount divided by 12 and add that to your payment. So essentially your payment consists of principal and interest, plus if you have an escrow account, 1/12 of your homeowner's insurance and 1/12 of your property taxes. What that means is the lender is keeping this money when you make your payment each month, and when it's time for your insurance to be paid or when it's time for your property taxes to be paid, they will have the money on hand and they make the payment for you. That makes life easier for you because they do that for you. And it also, for them, it means that your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance are being paid. They don't have to worry about you doing that, okay? So there's our information for our 30-year loan. Now I can go back and do the same thing for the 15-year loan. Now, the only thing we're changing is the N. So I'm just going to put in 180. I'm going to press the N key and I'm going to compute the payment. So the payment for the 15-year loan is going to be $1,265.27 per month. Now, a lot of people, when they're financing a house, this tends to be a very intimidating experience for them because a home for most people is going to be the largest asset that you purchase. And houses are expensive. I mean, they cost a lot. So if they don't understand time value of money, a lot of times what they think is, well, if I borrow money for half the amount of time, 15 years versus 30 years, then my payment will be twice as much. And as you can see here, that's not true. Now, your payment is higher, of course. So the $1,265.27, if I go back over here and I enter the, if I can get to show up, okay, the 1,265.27, so this is supposed to be a 1,265.27. You can see that the difference here is 400. Let me subtract this. Okay, so $406.36. So $406.36 difference on the 15-year mortgage versus the 30-year mortgage. Now, keep in mind that this is the same house. We are buying the same house. The only difference is we are financing one house for 15 years. We're financing it another if we buy the same house, but we finance it for 30 years. You can see the difference in the payments, which is $406.36 per month. But again, it's the same house. It's the same yard. It's the same shrubs in front of the house. It's the same attached garage. It's the same fence in the back. I mean, everything is the same. We're just financing it differently. And so again, understanding time value of money, understanding how amortized loans work can, well, I'll show you here, it can really save you a lot of money. Now, based on this, we can calculate something called an amortization schedule. And an amortization schedule, it looks like this. Now, this is the first loan that we dealt with in this chapter. This was the 3-payment, 1 payment per year, $15,000 loan. So this was the first example that we worked on. And you can see that an amortization schedule contains the beginning balance, the payment amount, and what I said is with an amortized loan, when you make payments, the payment amount is going to be the same if it's a fixed rate loan, but the portion that goes to interest and the portion that goes to principal is going to change as you make payments. So with each payment, a little more is going to go to principal, which is a good thing. A little less is going to go to interest, which is what you're paying the lender to use their money. And if you add up the portion that goes to interest and the portion that goes to principal, it will add up to the payment amount. And then the very last column is the remaining balance after you have made a loan payment. Now you can see with this 3-period loan, I mean, you can see that interest with each payment is going down significantly, and the amount that goes to principal with each payment is going up fairly quickly. And you can see after the third payment, we're going to be down to a balance of 0. It's actually 1 cent, but that's off due to rounding. Now, with your financial calculator, we can do the same thing, okay? So if I bring up the financial calculator. Now, what I want you to do here before we actually go to the amortization schedule is I want you to work your way back to the payment on the 30-year mortgage. So if you're showing this, all you have to do is put in your 360, press the N key, and press compute payment. So there we go. You need to have this showing, $858.91. And the inputs for that, you can, if you're watching this recording, you can go back just a little bit and you'll see the inputs. You're borrowing $160,000, 360 payments, 5% interest. Now, once we're here, we've got a loan payment calculated, this is when we can enter our amortization schedule. So notice right above the present value key are the letters AMORT. This is our amortization schedule. So I'm going to press the second key and the present value key. Now, what you're going to see here, you're going to see P1, and if you press the down arrow key, you're going to see P2. P stands for payment or period. It doesn't really matter which one. They both work the same way. But what we're doing here is, and how this works is, if we're interested in a single payment, so we want to know for payment number 1 or payment number 82 or payment number 247, remember we have 360 payments with this particular 30-year mortgage, we can set P1 and P2 equal to that payment number, and it's going to tell us of that payment, which is not going to change, the $858 per month, how much of that payment goes to principal and how much goes to interest. So for example, if I'm interested in just payment number 1, I can set P1 equal to 1. If it's not set on 1, I'll just press the number 1 and press the enter key, and then I could set P2 equal to payment number 1. If it's not there, I'm just going to press 1, press the enter key. Now, if you use your down arrow, and you can't get lost here, you're just going to work your way back around. If you press the down arrow key one time, you'll see the remaining balance after the first payment's been made. You still owe $159,807.75. Press the down arrow key again. You can see that of the total $858 and change that your payment consisted of, $192.25 goes to principal and $666.67 goes to interest. So a large part of your payment goes to interest for your first payment. But what I said is that with each subsequent payment, a little more is going to go to interest, a little more is going to go to principal, a little less is going to go to interest. So let's see if that's true. So if you press your down arrow key again, it's going to take you back to where we started. And let's take a look at payment number 2. Now, what I'm doing here, I'm going to switch screens just a minute. This will walk you through how to access the amortization schedule. Okay? So this slide, I'm not meant to teach from this slide. This is just a step-by-step process of what is the amortization schedule, what is P1, what is P2, that type of thing. But this is what we're doing now. So we just took a look at the first monthly payment. We could take a look at the second monthly payment. So I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to set P1 equal to payment number 2. Press the enter key. And then I'm going to press my down arrow key. And I'm going to set P2 equal to payment number 2. So 2, enter. Now if I press my down arrow key, it'll show me that after the second payment has been made, I still owe $159,614. Of the second payment of $858 and some change, $190 193.05 went to principal, and 665.86 went to interest. So more went to principal, less went to interest, but it was a small amount of difference. It was, let's see, 67, 14, 81 cents additional went to principal, and 80, is that what I said? 60, 81 cents less went to interest. So as you can see, it's going to take a while for a majority of your house payment to go towards principal, which is what you want to happen. And a lot of people see this and they think, well, the bank or the lender, whoever it might be, the lender is doing something either illegal or unethical because I'm just paying too much interest to the lender. But keep in mind what's happening here. When you first buy the house, you have borrowed $160,000, so you have the most or the highest amount of the lender's money that you're going to have throughout the entire loan. So a large portion of your payment is going to have to go to make the interest payment portion. With the second payment, you've paid off a little bit of principal, not much, but a little bit. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have a little bit less go to interest, a little bit more go to principal. But it's a slow process because keep in mind, this is a 360 payment loan. So you're going to be paying on this house for 30 years. Now, we can take a look at a series of payments. Now, to do this, I'm going to work my way back around to P1. And it says here, what about the first 12 payments? So the first year of making house payments, how much have you paid in principal and how much have you paid in interest? So to find this out, I want to know from payment 1 to payment 12. So I'm going to set payment 1 equal to P1 equal to 1, press the enter key. And then I'm going to press my down arrow key and I'm going to set P2 equal to 12 and press the enter key. Now, if I press my down arrow key, you'll notice that after I've made 12 payments the first year, I still owe $157,639.42. If I press the down arrow key again, I've paid a total of $2,360.58 during the first 12 payments, and I have paid principal and I've paid in interest $7,946.39. So you can see this is a slow process. We could go, for example, we could take a look at the first half of the loan. Now, again, a lot of people think that if you borrow money for 30 years and you've paid on it for 15 years, your balance should be half of what you borrowed. Well, let's see if that's true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set P1 equal to 1. I'm going to set P2 equal to 180. Press the enter key. So 180 payments, that's 15 years. So we've paid for the mortgage for 15 of the 30 years. And you'll notice the balance is not half of 160, which would be 80,000. The balance, what you still owe, is $108,614. So you're not even halfway there yet. But again, keep in mind what's going to happen is as you work your way into year 20, year 25, a larger portion of this, your total payment is going to go to principal, and then it's going to start paying down faster. But you pay a lot of interest. So far, you've paid $51,385 on the principal, and you've paid $103,218 in interest. So this house is going to cost you quite a bit of money. And we could take a look at all 360 payments. So we'd set P1 equal to 1, P2 equal to 360. Press the enter key. If we press our down arrow, you see the balance is approximately 0. It's off a little bit due to rounding, so we paid off our house. We've paid the $160,000 back that we borrowed, and we've paid $149,209 in interest to the lender. So this loan has cost us on the 30-year side let's see, let me go back here. It was $149,209. I'll just use that number. $149,209. Okay, so it's cost us a total of $160 plus the $149,209. This was the principal. This is the interest. And then remember, we also paid down $40,000 as a down payment. So this is our down payment. And so if we add all of this together, we have paid $349,209 total for this house. So that's a lot of money for your $200,000 house. You paid an additional $149,000 in interest. Now let's take a look at the 15-year mortgage. So if we go back to the calculator, and you can see the very, it says, okay, do the same calculations using the 15-year mortgage. So I'm going to go back and just put the information in really quickly for the 15-year mortgage. So it was $160,000 that we borrowed, present value. I'm leaving the interest rate the same. Now technically that's probably not correct, because a 15-year mortgage, since you have the lender's money for a shorter period of time, typically, instead of being 5%, it might be 4.5% or 4.25%, or it may be even 4%. But I'm going to leave it at 5 just so we can compare apples with apples. And the 180 was the in, and now compute the payment amount. So that's what we came up with earlier. Now I'm going to go to the amortization schedule. So second, present value. I want to set P1 equal to 1, and I want to set P2 equal to 180. Press the Enter key. Now what you'll notice is after 180 payments, or 15 years worth of payments with the 15-year mortgage, your house is paid for. You have a zero balance. You've paid a total of $160,000 in principal. You've paid your loan back, and you've paid $67,648 in interest. So the 15-year mortgage, $67,748. So let me go back here. It has cost you the, let's see, let me find where my pen is writing here. Okay, so the 160, the 67,748. I apologize how messy this is. It's not wanting to work very well. So that's the 160 and the $40,000 down payment. So this has cost you a total of $267,748. Now, you can compare this to the 30-year loan. Okay, so we've got our comparison here. Okay, so here we go, right here, right here. And if you wanted to do the math on this, you would find out that if you finance the same house for 15 years instead of 30 years by paying $406.30 more per month, you are actually going to save yourself $81,461 in interest. So $81,461 savings. Now I don't know about you, but I can probably find something to do with 81,000 additional dollars, because keep in mind, again, this is the same house. We're just financing it differently. And so what's going to happen is after 15 years, your house is paid for. So you've got a payment that you've been paying each month of $1,265.27. You can now do something else with that money because you don't have a house payment any longer. Plus, you've saved yourself $81,000 in interest if you had versus taking out the 30-year mortgage. Now, keep in mind that when it comes to houses, a lot of times we sit here and we'll crunch these numbers and try to figure out, well, what's best and how am I going to pay this house off, fastest and save money. But keep in mind that most people stay in their house an average of 3 to 5 years, and then they sell it and they buy another house. So what tends to happen is when we're house shopping, for example, we try to find the perfect house. We try to find the perfect house for every stage of our life. Find the perfect house for when you're young and single. Find the perfect house for when you're a newlywed couple. Find the perfect house for when you have small children. Find the perfect house for when you have teenagers. Find the perfect house for when you're now an empty nester and your kids have gone off to college. Find the perfect house for when you're older. You don't want to climb steps. I mean, we're thinking 30 or 40 years in advance, but keep in mind, we're only going to keep this house probably for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and we're going to sell it. We're going to buy another house. Now, with that, what tends to happen is, or what you hope is going to happen, is the value of the house is going to go up because that's what's supposed to happen typically, okay, although 2008 proved it always doesn't happen. And you're going to be paying down on the balance of the house, and so you're creating what's called owner's equity. And so you can then take that owner's equity and put it towards your next home purchase, and if you still finance your house for 15 or fewer years, you can still have any of your houses paid off in 15 years or less. So hopefully this is helpful to you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with 30-year mortgages, okay? But if you can finance your house for 15 years, typically it's a better move. Now, some people ask me, they'll say, well, that sounds really great, but my job is a commission-based job, or I'm not really sure that I could come up with that additional $406 that's listed here, per month, every month. So what can I do to pay my house off earlier than 30 years? Well, what I would suggest doing is take out the 30-year mortgage, but calculate the 15-year monthly payment. And so with each monthly 30-year payment, you're also going to pay an additional amount, in this case, of $406.36, the 15-year payment, the additional, you're going to pay this on principal with each loan payment. So what this means is, if you make this additional payment each month towards principal, and you don't miss any of the payments, you're going to have your house paid off in 15 years, even though it was a 30-year mortgage. Now, what might happen is, let's say that one month your car breaks down. You've got to spend some money on it. You don't have the additional $406. Well, what you can do is you can simply, for that month, make your normal house payment, okay, your $858.91, and then the next month, if you have the money, you can then start adding back towards principal. Now you want it going towards principal, the extra $406.36, and you can just keep doing that. So even if you miss a few months where you don't have the additional principal to pay and you just make your regular house payment of $858.91, you're still going to have your house paid off many, many years in advance of 30 years. Plus, you're saving yourself a lot of money in interest by making that additional principal payment. Even if you don't have the entire amount, if you pay an extra $50 towards the principal or $100 towards the principal per month, it's still going to add up over time. You're going to still save yourself quite a bit of money in interest. And one other thing to keep in mind is that, we've had historically low interest rates for the last 10 years, 12 years. Interest rates are going to be going up. And, on average, most people, if they could get a mortgage rate of 6%, 7%, 8%, even 9%, that wasn't bad. I mean, that was pretty good. And then we hit these historic low interest rates, and you were getting 30-year fixed for 3.5%, or 15-year fixed for 2.75%. Well, that's not going to keep happening. So if you don't own a house now, if you're going to buy a house in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you're probably going to pay a higher interest rate. So what that means is, one, if you have a fixed amount that you can spend, you're going to be able to, it's going to cause you to buy less house, because higher interest means your payment's going to go up. And secondly, the example that I just gave, if we're talking about a 7% interest rate or an 8% interest rate, it means you're going to be saving even more money, more interest, by financing your house for 15 years as opposed to 30 years. Okay, but again, it's just something I want you to think about and want you to understand, because typically if you walk into a lender and say, hey, I'm looking at a house, should I get a 15-year or 30-year mortgage? I mean, it depends on the lender, but a lot of them are going to tell you, you need a 30-year mortgage. And the reason being, they're going to make more money by loaning you money for 30 years as opposed to 15 years, they're going to make more interest. So again, understanding this is pretty important. So you can see one decision can save you almost $100,000 in interest, financing for 15 years versus 30 years. Now, the last part of chapter 5, I want to point this out really quickly. It talks about growth rates. And what we have here, we have an investment which we've got 5 years worth of data. So the first year we earned $1,250 from this investment. The last year we earned $1,520. And the question is, what is the percentage growth each year for these cash flows, starting at $1,250, ending at $1,520? These would be your inputs at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so the present value, now notice we're entering a present value and a future value, so the present value has to be entered as a negative number. So I'll bring this up and show you. Now I'm going to change back to one payment per year. Okay, so one, enter. And now I'm going to go through the clear process. So if I put in the $1,250, I'm going to make it negative here, okay, with the plus minus key at the bottom of your calculator, and then press the present value key. I'm going to put in 1,520 and press the future value key. And now here's what tends to be confusing to a lot of people. N is going to be the number of growth periods. And so if you just look at this quickly, you would say, well, there's 5 growth periods here. Well, there's actually not. There's actually 4 growth periods, because from 2007 to 2008 is 1 growth period. 08 to 09, 1 growth period. So you'll see we have 4 growth periods here. So N is going to be 4. So I'm going to press the number 4, press the N key, and now I want to compute the I/Y, which is actually the percentage growth per year. So in this case, I'll compute the I/Y, and it tells me that this investment, the cash flows from this investment, grew by 5.01% per year for 4 growth periods. All right, so this is just calculating a growth rate. And finally, that is chapter 5. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm suggesting you work all of the homework questions at the end of chapter 5. The only ones you're not responsible for are continuous compounding problems when it comes to interest and continuous compounding. Everything else is fair game. Also, practice on these. The more problems you work, the better off you're going to be. If you run out of time value money problems to work, I can find some more for you to practice on. And hopefully, a lot of this chapter can be used either immediately in your personal financial life or possibly in the next year or two as you're leaving school. Because, again, this is good stuff. This is stuff that everybody should know. Okay? So that is chapter 5. We're going to be moving on to chapter 8. I hope this recording is working. The sound may be a little bit low because I'm using the webcam here, so it's a little bit of ways away from me, but probably as I move up closer, it'll get better. But otherwise, everybody, take a look at this. Remember, your quiz is open. It's going to be open until Saturday. I will see you back here in class on Thursday, and we will start chapter 8. So everybody have a great day. I'm going to get this posted to your Canvas page, and hopefully it is working. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.